He sat there for hours. The coffee in his cup had long gone cold, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the cafe door, as if he was waiting for someone who'd promised to come but never did. The gentle hum of conversation around him faded into the background, and every time the bell above the door jingled, his head lifted just a little, only to fall again when it wasn't her. Outside, snow drifted lazily down the streets of Toronto, wrapping the world in a quiet blanket of white. Inside, time seemed to move slower for him. The man's name was Daniel. He had been coming to this cafe every Saturday for nearly 3 months now. The barista, a kind young woman named Lily, always gave him the same sympathetic smile. She never asked questions, maybe because she already knew. Sometimes, you could read heartbreak without a single word. Daniel always sat by the same window, the one facing the street where the maple trees stood bare in winter. It was the spot he had once shared with her, Emily. Emily had been everything Daniel never knew he needed. They'd met right here in this very cafe a year ago, when she accidentally spilled hot chocolate all over his sketchbook. She had laughed nervously, apologized 100 times, and offered to buy him a new one. That was how it started, over spilled cocoa and smudged ink. Over months, they'd talked about dreams, fears, and small, quiet hopes. She loved to talk about her little boy, Noah, and how she wanted to give him a life filled with love and safety. But life had other plans. Emily was fighting a battle Daniel didn't know about, one with her health and her past. She had told him once that sometimes, when things feel too heavy, she just disappears for a while to protect the people she loves. One day, she vanished completely. No calls, no messages, just silence. Daniel had gone to her apartment, but it was empty, no forwarding address, no clue, no goodbye. And so, he waited. Every Saturday, he came to the cafe they loved. He didn't know if it made sense, but his heart refused to move on. He told himself that if she ever came back, she would know where to find him. That's where he was that cold December afternoon, lost in the past, when a small voice broke through his thoughts. "Are you waiting for my mom?" Daniel blinked, startled, and turned toward the voice. A little boy stood beside his table, holding a tiny toy car. His cheeks were red from the cold, and his big brown eyes looked up with innocent curiosity. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The boy couldn't have been more than 6 years old. I don't know," Daniel replied softly, unsure of what to say. "Who's your mom?" The boy smiled shyly and pointed toward the counter. Daniel's gaze followed, and the world seemed to stop moving. It was her, Emily. She stood there, older somehow, a touch more fragile, her hair tied loosely beneath a winter hat. Her eyes, those same eyes he used to get lost in, were wide with shock and disbelief. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she took a hesitant step forward, tears already glistening. "Daniel," she whispered. Her voice trembled like the first note of a forgotten song. He stood up slowly, as if afraid she might vanish again if he moved too fast. The little boy, unaware of the storm of emotions between them, looked back and forth between the two, confused but smiling. Emily knelt down beside him. "Noah," she said softly, her voice breaking. "This is Daniel, an old friend of Mommy's." Daniel's heart swelled with a mix of joy and pain. He wanted to say so many things, to ask where she'd been, why she'd left, if she'd ever thought of him. But looking at Noah, he understood. She had been protecting her son, doing what she thought was best. They sat together, the three of them, at that small cafe table. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was full of unspoken memories and quiet forgiveness. Emily explained, slowly, that after her diagnosis she had needed to disappear for treatment, unsure if she'd survive. She hadn't wanted Daniel to see her like that, to watch her fade. But she had recovered, and life had found its way back to her in a small town outside the city. And today, by chance, she had brought Noah into the city for a holiday visit. Daniel listened, his hands trembling slightly around his cup. When she finished, he simply said, "You could have let me wait with you." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she reached across the table. "You waited anyway," she whispered. "You always did." Noah, still clutching his toy car, looked between them again. "Mom, can Daniel come with us to see the Christmas lights?" Daniel smiled for the first time in months. He looked at Emily, who nodded through her tears. That night, they walked together through the softly falling snow. The city lights glowed like stars reflected in puddles. Emily's hand found Daniel's, and for the first time, it felt like winter wasn't so cold. Sometimes, life takes people apart so it can bring them back stronger. Sometimes, love isn't about waiting for someone to return, it's about believing they still will. As they disappeared into the glow of the evening, Daniel realized something he had forgotten for a long time: some waits are worth every second.